You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we have a special guest joining us. But first, a quick word from one of our partners, CallRail. So how many high-value cases did you lose in the past year because your firm couldn't respond fast enough? 81% of law firms say slow response times cost them business, sometimes nearly a quarter of their annual revenue. That's why you need CallRail in 2026, integrated directly into your case management system. CallRail is going to help you capture every call, even after hours, spot high-value leads instantly, respond faster, and get the insights you need to bring in bigger cases. Join over the 3,000 law firms to follow up that are using CallRail, land bigger cases, and drive growth to your law firm. Start your free trial at callrail.com/lawyer stories. Reach out to me. I'll tell you how to get in touch with them. And thank you, CallRail, for being a good partner. And back to our guest. So today we're joined by Rosa. How are you?
Really good. Thank you, everyone, for listening to my story. And Ben, it's so nice to connect with you again. It's always a pleasure. I love what you're doing, and I've been following you closely since I launched my firm. So it's an honor to finally be here and to be able to connect.
I like that. So let me say a little bit about Rosa Villa, founder and managing partner of Villa Law, PLLC, based in Miami, Florida. Rosa's a South Florida attorney providing bold results-driven representation across employment law, intellectual property, entertainment, and business contracts. She represents both employers and employees and works closely with entrepreneurs, creatives, and businesses to protect brands, manage risk, and resolve disputes efficiently and strategically. Rosa, also congratulations on your recent award for Miami-Dade Bar, Young Lawyer Section 40 Under 40. It must be good to be young. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome. Great
I'm
award.
also very honored for that recognition and award. It's even though I've been practicing for 5 years, sometimes it feels like 40. So
yeah, but hell yeah, you just went out on your own. We're going to talk about that.
Right.
So let's start at the beginning. Tell us where you're from and like what originally pulled you towards the law.
So I was born in Cuba, and my family migrated when I was 4. I've lived here ever since. I studied, I went to college in Florida, stayed in Miami, went to UM. I actually was between UM and Boston University for law school at one point.
Really?
Yeah, I got the same
And then you were
scholarship
like, snow, nah, I'll stay in.
No, nah. And then also, it's, I'm not going to find croquetas in Boston the way that I'm going to find it here. And also, croquetas are important. I like my gastronomy. I think it's kind of like comfort food, especially when you're away from family. And so, but actually what really did it for me was I thought long and hard about the fact that I would be practicing here at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that it's intelligent for law students to really think about where they have their network and where they are planning on practicing law and taking the bar exam as a long shot. For the most part, a lot of my friends actually that are from Miami and went to law school outside of the state, out of the state, they stayed in their respective states long term because why? While you're in law school, you establish your network, you grow your network, and then you say, well, I already know people that are going to get me into XYZ firm, so why would I go back to Miami? Why would I go back to Florida when I've already established that? So because I had interned, I had undergraduate interns in different law firms, and I worked in law firms before law school, I thought, you've already planted these seeds here. Ultimately, this is the city that you feel like you're going to prosper and grow the most in. And, Miami has grown a lot. It was growing exponentially when I was in law school and times 4 after COVID rather. And I thought, I think the intelligent move is to stay here and practice here and give it a whirl. And it's really panned out and it paid off. So.
Yeah, you have a lot of great experience. So, like, what was the moment that you said to yourself, "Hell, like, I want to go to law school"?
Well, I always wanted to go to law school. I mean, this is a funny factoid. I took a personality test when I was 8 years old.
Eight. Wow. Yeah.
And I think the idea behind the test was they matched the children's personalities or the students' personalities with a given career or vocation.
Okay.
And I guess I was an argumentative 8-year-old. And so
Really?
I just have like very clear visceral memories of that experience. And then I
Did they
pursued
say
law.
like you should go to law school at 8 years old? Is that what they, or were they like
So,
you just like to argue?
so I remember it was a questionnaire that each student had. I forgot, I obviously can't remember for the life of me the questions, but at the end of each question, you would get a result, and the result would match you with, depending on your result, it would match you with a respective career. My career was law. Maybe I was a litigious or argumentative 8-year-old. I don't remember, but I followed that blindly, didn't question it as, children would do, I'm assuming, into oblivion. And so I graduated from college. Even in college, I was in the debate team at FIU. I went to FIU for undergrad. I did Model UN. And I always had it in the back of mind that this was my path. And so I intentionally took 2 years off
Okay.
between college and law school, as many people do. But what I did was that I worked in law firms because I thought, well, before you take the leap, you're going to do this anyway, work with attorneys and get hands-on experience every day, seeing what attorneys go through on the day to day. So I
Yeah,
worked,
so smart.
it just like I saw the stresses, I saw the highs and the lows, and I thought, all right, great. You have a panoramic, unfiltered view of what this is going to look like when you graduate, because also law school is a different experience. It's a different beast from actual practice. And so I realized that early on.
Hmm.
So I took that 2-year gap period. I worked for Sony for a
Yep.
period. I worked for their general counsel, and that was my introduction to entertainment law. And I thought, well, this is really exciting. I love this area. Let's see, what else is out
How do you
there.
get a job for Sony, like working at Sony? I mean, that's
So
sort of, I
the
would say, a dream job for a lot of people, and that's pretty sweet.
It was an amazing experience. This was the Sony Music Latin in the Coconut Grove
Okay.
location here. And the in-house the general counsel's legal assistant was out on maternity leave, and they needed somebody to cover that. And
Nice.
I'm still in touch with her. Her maternity leave extended to an extra, like I think it was 4 or 5 months. And
Okay.
so I covered her for her entire maternity leave plus a few months more. And yeah, I applied, I got the job, and I love the culture. I still have very, very good friends in the office. And so, I'm like, okay, this is a really interesting area. Let's see what else is out there. And so I took that 2-year gap period to also experiment and see what practice areas would fit me the most. Because even though I knew that I wanted to be an attorney always, I didn't really know what practice area I wanted to fall
Right.
in. And
Smart.
so, yeah,
So this was before you even went to Miami Law.
before I even went,
So
literally
like,
this.
did you have? I gotta ask. I'm not trying to cut you off, but like, did you? Because I don't know. That's just really smart. So like, did you have a mentor or something that said, "Hey, go for 2 years, go work, like go work in different areas, figure it out," you know?
I didn't, it was intuitive, but I have since I wouldn't say collected, but I've been blessed enough to have a lot of mentors, a lot attorneys, some non-attorneys,
Yeah.
but the majority attorneys. But no, it was just an intuition. I thought logically, well, you're going to do this. It's not going to be glamorous. And law school is going to give you a completely different experience than actual practice. And I didn't get this from shows. I didn't get this from Suits. I wasn't a big,
Right.
law television person. I didn't know what I didn't know, which is fine, but I had a sense that this was going to look differently in an office or in an in-house counsel position than it's going to look like in law school on the academic side. So I thought, all right, take these 2 years off. On your time off, maybe travel as well. But more importantly, get hands-on experience working with other attorneys before you take this leap that you're going to take anyway, so you can see how your life is going to look like on the other side of, the rainbow, if you will. So no, it was just intuitive. I didn't have anyone tell me or guide me through that. I have had a great mentors guide me since, but that
Good.
particular decision was just a feeling that I had, and I went with it, and it worked. And so after Sony, I worked for a litigation boutique, also in the Grove, doing it was maritime. God, and I'm still super friends with the guys. It's maritime lawsuits and breach of contract cases,
Okay.
and I loved the team. I didn't so much love the practice area, and I thought, all
Sure.
right, great, process of elimination. This
Right.
isn't going to be my landing spot in terms of the area that I fall into. But again, there I made a great network of
How
other.
did you, so Rosa, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt, but how did you go from working at like Sony
So
to like
after. Mhm.
to maritime?
So after the maternity leave period for the in-house counsel's legal assistant was over, and she came back, my time at Sony expired, and I thought, well, I still have, I think at that point I had 6 months before I started law school in UM. I had already accepted my scholarship at UM, and I was between Boston and UM at that time, and so I said, you have 6 months to kill. I want to continue working. I want to keep my mind fresh. Let's see if you can get another legal assistant job, maybe for just 6 months, and see who wants to take you on for those 6 months
Okay.
in the area. And so it just so happened that this is amazing, because I remember the first word that one of the partners told me. And so I was like, okay, just look for another firm in the area so you don't have to commute. At that time, I lived in the area, so it just made sense. And this particular law firm, Spector Rubin, shout out to Spector Rubin. The guys are the best maritime lawyers in
Nice.
Miami.
All right.
Um, Andrew, Rob, Mark, the best. And so they had an opening. When I tell you it was a door next to Sony, it was a door next to Sony. I walked right out of
Really?
my 5 p.m. like cutoff at the office at Sony, and I walked down the street, and then I had an interview, and the guys were like, here's your offer the following day
Wow.
or the week after.
They loved you right from the beginning. They're like, here you go. So you
Yeah,
were busy for those
they're just like, you
2 years.
don't stop talking, you have the gift of gab. I'm like,
Oh,
you're
that's
in.
you were what? So you got like those 2 years filled with like experience about
Yeah.
what you wanted to do, or what you didn't want to do actually.
Oh, yeah.
So that's pretty cool. So what about BBC Studios?
So the BBC was an internship in law school. It
Okay.
was, I believe, I want to say my third year of law school, perhaps second semester. And prior to that, I worked at the Adrian Center with their in-house counsel, Arik Kurtzman, also still the in-house counsel, amazing, another mentor. Shout out to Arik. Yeah, another entertainment law, also IP interfacing experience where I thought, okay, this gets me closer to my purpose and to the thing that I want to do.
Yeah.
And I was really purposeful in law school to match my curriculum, or just make sure that in addition to structuring my classes and my academic curriculum to the thing that I wanted to do when I graduated, to also have internships and law and clerkships in that area. So
Okay.
I worked with Arik first at the Adrian Center for, I don't know, the 6 months of fall semester. And then I worked with Christina Scarano, who was the in-house counsel at BBC back then at the Gables location
Wow.
for the other 6 months. And then during that time, I don't know how I found the time to do this. I really don't. During that time, going to school, finishing an entire curriculum every semester, interning, which is considered another class in UM. I clerked for an intellectual property law firm
Wow.
it's called the Plus IP firm. And so I did all of this intentionally, because once I have an interest in something, and a passion, I really pursue it to the end,
Okay.
whatever that looks like. And so I thought, all right, cool. You know the area that moves you. You have these connections, you have these opportunities, start crafting your present, your future, and your career like this, and start making those connections now in law school. And so that's what I've done, and that's what I did when I was in school. And then my last semester of school, I remember in March, I just had this conversation with the Launchpad at UM, which is like a business seed entrepreneur group. They shut down UM. It was in March of 2020, and they told us we were in I think it was spring break vacation, and we got a message from the dean, don't come back. This looks like it's going to be bigger than we
Wow.
expected.
COVID. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
COVID. And so I finished off my semester online, took the bar online. That was the first administration that they conducted the exam online. And yeah, the bar did a really good job, I think, at handling that situation to the best of their ability. And yeah, I took the bar. I passed it the first time, thankfully. And I remember getting an offer from one of the partners that I worked for, who branched off and opened his own firm. And I thought, I didn't love the offer, so I made the decision to reject it, and I took another offer doing insurance defense litigation. And sometimes I look back at that decision and I think, man, if you had only taken that initial offer and just kind of stuck it out, you'd be exactly where you are now. But you know what? The world has a way of deciding for you and planning for you.
Right.
You know what your path is. And so I stumbled into, when I accepted my first offer, doing insurance defense litigation. So it was first party property work. I had my intro, I think, crash course in litigation, which I didn't think that I was going to do. Most of IP entertainment law is transactional anyway. So that was my plan. Things changed after I didn't take on that offer, and I got really, really good soft and hard skills litigating. I was thrown into my first plaintiff's deposition within 4 months. I mean, insurance defense litigation is really high volume.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
all hands on deck. And the firm that I worked for was amazing. And I had a great hands-on experience and mentorship at the firm, and a really good introduction in courtroom procedure, the civil rules of procedure, how to conduct mediations, how to argue at hearings in front of judges, how to take my own plaintiff's depositions, defend corporate rep depositions, and the motion practice that goes along with it.
Wow.
I thought, okay, so I can do this. This is interesting too. Great. I'm gonna get what I need from this experience, but I don't want to litigate plumbing leaks. No offense to first party property attorneys, hate them. They're essential, especially in South Florida.
How long were you there?
I worked at the firm's called Walton Lantaff and Schroeder. It's an amazing firm. I worked with them for about, I want to say 9 months, give or take, 9 months.
So, I mean, come on, like you go from Sony, and no offense to, defense, like insurance defense, but that's got to be a little like, but in hindsight, I feel like all attorneys, a lot of attorneys, majority of attorneys should work a job like, PI or insurance defense, because you really learn the lawyering skills, like the quintessential, what it's like to like do the deposition, do an interrogatory, go to court, so even if you got 9 months and you were like, like this is kind of this doesn't move me, as you said, like, it's giving me great experience, right?
100%. Yeah. That's where my mind was at precisely. And I really got my hands dirty. You know how it is. Nice. Like the settlement, like the settlement discussions with opposing counsel, constant discussions, sometimes very with a lot of friction with opposing counsel.
So within those 9 months, and you're like trying to put like a cost on somebody's life and say, no, this person's like not worth this. Like, would you have
not their life, their property,
or their property? Okay, it was property. So, at any point, were you like, "Hey, maybe I should do like PI"?
You mean IP?
No. Like when you were doing insurance defense.
Did I think, should I do personal injury instead?
Yes.
No, I always actually pined to go back, and that's a point that I'm going to get into a bit deeper. I always pined to go back to IP
Okay.
and entertainment law at the back of mine. And so after that experience, which was amazing, I thought, all right, let's look for something that's going to be more long term for you. So I started working at Jackson Lewis doing
So how did you end up leaving the insurance defense?
so
Like,
as I do, when I get a feeling of this is not my area,
okay.
I thought, all right, start looking for different practice areas that might perhaps make sense for you long term. If you decide to go in-house for a company. So I thought employment law sounds like labor and employment sounds like the next best decision or
Right.
practice area. So I started looking for those employment defense firms that handled cases on the defense side. And Jackson Lewis picked me up, and I thought, all right, this is the time to make that leap. They made an offer doing again employment defense litigation, and I had zero experience, just the pre-lit experience that I had doing insurance defense litigation in my first firm. And I thought, all right, I hope this is enough and that they like me enough for me,
So
to
like, what's that like? Like
yeah.
when they, and I feel like I'm like cutting. I don't mean to do that. I'm not
Okay, I
usually
love
like
it. I
that.
love it.
I don't mean to cut you. I'm not usually like that. I'm sorry. I have follow-up questions. So like, what's that like? Like you go into this employment for like Jackson Lewis, like, and you're saying you have no experience, and they throw a file on your desk, and they're like, "Here, handle it." Like, how do you deal with that?
Well, so they actually did a really, really good job at easing me in early on. JL, I think maybe this is the a big law kind of practice. They had me sit in on a lot of webinars. They have a lot
Okay.
of resources. So on the my off time, there's generally an expectation for associates to teach themselves this particular law, kind of like swim or drown. But the resources were there, right?
Okay.
And I knew that that was the challenge, and so I took it on, and they eased me in like with every other firm. There's kind of an intro to the culture and also to the practice area. They also knew that I didn't have experience in this practice area, so
Yeah.
even though the expectations were high, they were realistic because I was very honest with them in the interview process. And I told them I had zero employment law experience. This is what you're getting. And
Yeah.
and they were very receptive to that. And I worked my butt off. And I also, it was an introduction to employment law, and I really liked it as well. And so, but I got to a point where I thought, really at every firm that I worked at, I always wanted to get back to IP. And I thought, realistically, a firm isn't going to let you just carve out your own IP practice and bring in your own IP
Yeah.
clients. That's not how it's going to work for you. And so, unless you actively make a decision to open your firm, generate your own book of business, be clear about your clientele and the niche that you want to work with, this isn't going to happen to you for you. And then I thought, all right, don't sit around and wait for someone to give you this opportunity, because that's not, again, that doesn't happen when you're an attorney. Usually when you specialize in a practice area, you're locked into it, especially years in. At that point, it was 4 years in. It's okay. And I thought, after speaking to really good friends and family who supported my decision, and after seeing other colleagues my year do it themselves before I did, I was like, yeah, I'm inspired. I'm going to do this, and I'm hopefully going to make this work. So I left without a book of business,
Wow.
zero clients, and I did the thing, and I called an accountant. I registered my
Good. Wow.
PLLC, and made sure I tightened up on my rules of ethics, and and was really clear on the the solo practitioner guidebook on how to do this. And yeah, it's been a really, really good experience ever since. When I launched, I had immediate referrals from really good attorney friends. I mean, just off the bat, which
That's
I'm really.
amazing. That really shows that they respect you and they really are your friend,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
No, I mean, listen, Ben, it's funny because when you say mentors, mentorship is so important for
Mhm.
me. I haven't gotten there. I don't consider myself a mentor yet, but that's coming. Yeah, and I think it's just because I don't have the bandwidth for it right now. Well, Everyone should make time. Maybe I have mentored and I don't even realize it, but I will say that I am where I am today because of the network that we have in Miami.
Yeah.
One senior seasoned partners that I worked under who paved the way for me and taught me and guided me to where I am now, and I'm forever grateful for that. People that I'm still in touch with after so many years, people that I talk to like every 3 months, and also actively make efforts to keep those contacts alive. And then also folks from my graduating class who are like, you're in the struggle, I'm in the struggle, I'm gonna help you because I already know what's gonna happen in a few months. And this endless passing down the torch attitude that I've gotten from a lot of people, I can only say like let's just replicate that and let's keep that going. That's why I'm really excited about you coming to Miami
Oh,
because
yeah.
this is the spot. We have really good attorneys here. Not only just like substantively good, but good people, good attorneys, and a really good network. Like,
It's good.
so
And you almost went to Boston. Come on.
yeah.
Look at you. You love Miami.
I actually my introduction to Boston was a debate competition that we had at Brandeis. Am
Yeah.
I
Oh, yeah.
is it Brandeis
A good
University?
school. Yeah.
And then I had a lot of friends from high school who went to MIT, and I visited their campus. I visited them and I visited the
Yeah.
campus, and I'm like, man, Boston's really cool. So when I started applying to law schools, I thought, well, you've been to Boston, you like it. I've been to DC too. I think I applied to a few schools in DC, but I thought, I don't know, I kind of like Boston. I have a lot of connections there
So you're
still.
looking at BU?
Well, that's where I was accepted.
That's
So I
all.
was between
Wow.
BU and UM, and they gave me a very competitive scholarship commensurate to the one that I got in UM. And I
Wow.
thought, well, where am I going to realistically practice at the end of the day?
Right. Smart.
It's,
What about, tell me about your entrepreneurial spirit. Like you
yes,
launched your own firm and like,
yeah.
is that something that was in your blood? Like, was any family members entrepreneurs, or like, did you just say like, I don't like, what made you ultimately want to do that instead of try to hustle, get your way back to like Sony or like one of those places you began and like try to incorporate employment law? Because they have it all there, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah. So, like I mentioned, I got to a point where I always wanted to get back to IP, and I thought
Yes.
realistically, the firms that you're working for aren't going to let you carve out that niche or that practice area. So, I'm like, all right, figure out a way where you can branch off and open your own firm, generate business clients or startups, and still use your employment background to service these clients in like an advice and counsel kind of role, and then also get back to IP, right? And so I had a pretty clear business plan, vision for it, but I didn't have a framework. I don't come from a family of
Okay.
entrepreneurs. I didn't take entrepreneurship classes. I was, however, a part of what UM has. It's called the Launchpad. Shout out to the
Okay.
Launchpad. Reconnected with them.
Awesome.
And it's a basically an entrepreneurship hub in UM that guides its students who are interested in launching their own business or have like a web app idea, and they are looking for mentors, many who are attorneys, to guide them through the process. And I was part of that entire movement. UM Law has something similar. It's called the Startup Practicum and Startup Clinic. Shout out to both.
Wow.
And so I was surrounded by a lot of entrepreneurs, Ben, when I was in law school, but I didn't really think about, it didn't really ever cross my mind that I'd ever go solo until it actually happened. And, once it did, I'm like, all right. So not only are you expected now to be an attorney, but you have to also do business development and be a startup owner, a lawyerpreneur, which is what I call it. And there's no guidebook for that. We don't learn business development in the law, in law
Yeah.
school. And so a lot of that was learning on the fly, asking a lot of friends who've already done it on their own, researching, and everything else, kind of stitching it together through bits and pieces of information that I got on the internet or through friends and mentors who have already done it. So I did not get a guidebook on that. It doesn't run in my bloodline. But
No,
I think
no.
that as a solo, and I'm sure that you've experienced this in some way,
Oh, yeah.
you kind of just have to improvise and learn it as you go, which is the beauty of it. It really does put your innovative spirit to the test. So yeah, that's been my ride. In addition to also servicing clients and doing the lawyer job, there's that entrepreneurial part, which is networking, client acquisition, getting your name out there. That was the hardest part of this entire experience is, all right, so you don't have an accounting department now. You don't have a marketing department now. It's just you.
Right. And let me tell you, like, if you ever see anybody on Lawyer Stories that you think I might know, because I don't know everybody who follows us, but I'm happy to make warm introductions if I know them. So if you ever say, hey, this person looks like somebody that I might want to connect with, like, just let me know and I'll reach out to them and do like a warm intro, you know.
Good.
I'm
That's
happy
good.
to do that. I'm happy to do that if you come, like, you know, in Miami, like when we have our event, like,
Yeah.
say, we'll introduce you to everybody I know. I mean, not that you probably know more people in Miami than I do, sitting here and perched up in central Massachusetts. So I don't
I've seen your following list. You have like you have a sea of attorneys, Ben, even in Miami that I don't even know yet. So and I'm super excited about this. I didn't even know that you guys were around since like what, 2017?
Well, I started my Instagram page then, but this night's about you. So let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
So what do you love about like being how, first of all, you've been in business how long? Like a year and a half?
So I launched my firm September of last year. It's only been 6 months
Not
now.
even 6 months. Okay. So that's okay. So what do you love the most about it?
So one, being able to have client interaction hands-on, which you know, when you're working, especially as a junior associate in another firm, there is understandably a limit as to how much client interaction associates can have. And I thought, well, that's always going to handicap because the client, the client isn't just interested in your services, but they need to feel like they can trust you.
Yeah.
Right. And one of my gifts, I think, is being a people person. You know, can understand a client's issue from the get-go, and I can also empathize with them. And, you know, I have this like psychological connection, or I try to, with clients from the get. And so I thought, well, you know, your strengths aren't being properly utilized. So now that I'm practicing on my own and I get to talk to clients and I get to, I guess this is the business development aspect of it all. I get to sell my services to them. It's much more exciting. It's much more exciting. It's more personable. You know, I can say things without feeling like there's a lot of red tape or you know, fearing that I'm going to oversell the firm or, you know, the firm services. Because now it's just me. I'm my brand. My firm is the thing that I'm selling to clients. So having hands-on client interaction, it has been a big game changer for me. It's kind of one of my biggest strengths that I feel like I was a bench warmer essentially for while working with firms, understandably. And so now I get to, you know, be front and center with clients, which I love. Handling cases on my own, in my way, choosing my clients intentionally, and finally generating, or rather choosing the practice areas that make sense for me, that inspire me, that are my stronghold, has been the most exciting part of it. Of course, there are less glamorous aspects of being a solo attorney, which are, as you know, the long hours, and a lot of them are just like truly round the clock.
Right. Because you're always you know, you're always thinking about it. You're always, how can I get that next client? Like, when do I need to send out my invoices? Like,
that was yesterday. Yes.
There's a lot that goes into it, and like, you know, it's not like you're on some like routine based salary where you're getting like money delivered to your account every like 2 weeks or whatever it is. You know, you have to really work and hustle for it. And 100%. I guess, like, you know, you'll probably get to a point where you got to be like, okay, like, when's going to be enough and like when's not enough, you know? So it really, you have to strike a balance, I would guess. I mean, even with something like Lawyer Stories, like I feel like I'm always like, it's always like sort of there.
Back of
you know
mind.
what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. It's your baby. It's your passion project.
And you're very
Yeah.
proud of it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And it's your legacy.
Yeah, and I actually want to like kind of reset this for a minute with Rosa Villa and ask you via law, like tell us who's coming to you for legal help. Like what case are you taking? Who's coming to you? Who are your clients?
So my clients as of late, thankfully, have been a lot of these either seed stage or early stage startups.
Okay.
Or some of them, I mean, have been on the market for 10 years who, they have no idea how to set up their employment practices, for instance, and they need someone to give them advice and counsel on both federal and state law compliance and someone to review their employee handbook. And so when I get these businesses, these small, they're usually smaller businesses, I think, okay, there's an opportunity here to engage this client as a what they call now a fractional general counsel for
Okay.
long-term a long-term legal relationship where I can grow with the business as they are also expanding and growing, provide IP services, draft their trademark, their trade secret agreements, for instance, their licensing agreements, register their name brand if they have any. I also work closely with a patent attorney. I work very closely with a lot of patent prosecutors, so I can refer them if they have something that they need to register with the USPTO for patents, and then also work with them on the employment side of
Yeah,
things. And so, yeah, a lot of my
that's a
clients have been,
really that's a really interesting mix because
yeah.
go ahead. A lot of your clients, go ahead.
It's so seamless. Honestly, I didn't know how, I had an idea of how interlinked employment law and IP were. I had an idea, but not as deeply as I have it now in practice. There's a lot of just interactions with both practice areas and
Yeah.
dedications, especially when it comes to, having, for instance, a trade secret or some kind of process or vendor lists that you don't want your employees to then disclose after they leave, your company. And so there's the employment side and the IP side. And I thought, well, you already have the employment side, you have experience with IP. Businesses are always looking for both. You can
That's
be a
really
one-stop
smart.
shop for these local businesses that are growing. And after COVID, Ben, Miami has looked very different. The business landscape here has looked extremely different. We have a lot of folks from New York, from New York City, from Silicon Valley, a lot from Colorado, actually coming in and growing their businesses, really establishing their seeds and bringing tech
Oh,
businesses,
yeah.
apps.
That's like such a good niche.
It's such a good niche, and
Because you're there from the beginning, helping them establish the
and
business, right? Like you're helping them with the papers, you're telling them what how to file it under, and then you're like, hey, I'll also be like your employment attorney, so hire some people and I'll fire them for you if I need to. Not really like that, but you know what I'm saying? Like you'll handle the employment, right?
well, there's that, yeah, and a lot of these thinkers are leaving their former companies in California, and they're coming into a completely different employment platform where now you have non-competes that lock you in.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so early on, when I meet a lot of these inventors or entrepreneurs who are leaving California, that's a no non-compete state coming in, they're thinking, well, now I have to negotiate this employment agreement that has a non-compete built into it. And I don't have experiences with non-competes because I'm coming from California. I need an attorney, but then I also have to, register this trademark. And then I also have to talk to a patent attorney to get this startup up and going. Who can I talk to? And when I run into these folks, I'm like, this is perfect. I can work with you throughout this entire process,
Right.
all of these needs. So that's the profile of clients that I'm working with. And I'm also working with the individual creator who doesn't monetize necessarily their idea, but they want to protect it. So
Mm,
songwriters
okay.
who are not ready to launch or publish their music to Spotify, but they want to register it intelligently
Mhm.
before they put it on these streaming platforms. They
Sure.
come to me and they ask me, what's the best plan of action for this? How can I protect this before we get to the infringement phase? And Yeah, I love having clients like that as well. That's another profile and background client that I have. So yeah, that's really been my interaction right now with clients. And I also have kept my litigation practice alive. And it was funny, I was just telling a colleague this. Even though IP attorneys, IP entertainment, I'm going to use both of them interchangeably because it's like IP is such an umbrella term. Even though those dedications are, for the most part, because there's always a trademark lawsuit, copyright lawsuit, patent lawsuit, they happen all the time.
Yeah.
For the most part, those practices are transactional, right? There are a lot of agreements in place. You're registering with the federal government, with the federal office, the USPTO, Copyright Office. Lawsuits happen all the time, and there's a lot of pre-lawsuit issues that need to be addressed as well. You want to avoid lawsuits, but when your client comes to you and says, "I'm being sued," and we're beyond the demand stage and the pre-settlement stage, we're already in court. It's good that I have this litigation background.
Yeah, yeah,
Also
totally.
offer clients, so it's
So
complicated.
you're not afraid to like get your hands dirty in court and
Well,
like,
no, that was my introduction to practice
yeah,
to the
hell
practice of
yeah.
law. So
Hell
yeah.
yeah. That's great. You're very well rounded. I mean, you did this in a very smart way, and you obviously saw the connection between the IP and the employment, like when you were starting out. So like that's, you're going to grow with all these businesses and have all these clients, and then be doing like the employment might come a little later to the IP, right? But like it'll,
Sometimes,
yeah,
yeah, that's actually a good point because a lot of these startups still haven't hired
right.
a team. They just have, for instance, like independent contractors, or they're collaborating with creators. That's another process because you want to give them vendor agreements or
Yeah.
creator agreements. But sometimes they are in the very infant stages of developing their businesses, and I get them right at that time,
Yeah.
which I love. Because I also like truly believe in my client's idea. There are a lot of really intelligent people that are building really great
That's
things,
awesome. Yeah, that's really cool.
and that's exciting. And
Yeah.
I am truly excited and passionate
Yeah.
about my clients' projects, and so that's a huge. It has been a really huge pro for me, that I genuinely care about my clients' work and the thing that they're trying to achieve and protect. And so it makes really going for them hard that much easier. So yeah.
Well, it seems like you love like what you're doing. I mean,
Yeah.
you can tell like you really like you're passionate about like what you're doing, what you selected, and you've done enough to know what you don't really like, what's not a good fit. Not what you don't like necessarily, but like what's not a good fit. So
Yeah.
that's really that's a plus. A lot of people can't find that, especially it's hard to find it that young. I guarantee there's people out there that don't love what they're doing, right? You think there's
Yeah.
lawyers out there that are in a position and they're like, ah, I wish I can do this or I wish I could do that. You're an example, Rosa Villa, of somebody who goes out and figures it out. They've hustled enough. They've had good jobs. They've figured it out, like what, two things are going to kind of merge together and what you're going to do. So like, tell us like what non-legal skills, and we talked about this a little bit, are like most critical to your success as a founder. And I think it's being a people person. You talked about, like, what else would you say?
Being a people person, I mean, I don't know if this is a non-legal skill, but being being optimistic but strategic about your client's problem. And by that I mean when you're faced with or presented with an issue that a client comes to you with, offer solutions and try to find workarounds instead of just being the no person. I find that clients are less likely to trust you or want to continue working with you if you are shooting down, for instance, every idea that they
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
You can't be reckless with your legal advice. You have to be intentional with it and be very clear with the client about the risks, period.
Yeah.
But what we do is to find workarounds anyway and to protect and represent our client's best interest. And so the client comes to you with an issue, it's it's your job to find a solution and a workaround with that, not to tell them, well, I don't know if I can do this. I don't think that that's a great idea. And, give clients pushback because at the end of the day, they have this idea that they want to bring to market.
Yeah.
And they're looking to you to get it to market.
Right.
They're saying no, you're not offering a value or a service to
Do you
them.
have to be more encouraging? Like, you don't want to be like ChatGPT and like, because I tell ChatGPT like, don't tell me what I want to hear. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want to. Do you have to be encouraging? Can you tell them, hey, like, I don't think this is,
It really depends. I would never falsely mislead a
Okay.
client
Well, that's
into
good.
thinking
Yeah.
that their idea is good when it's not. I mean, it's also just not my role to tell them whether or not it's a good idea or not. I tell them whether or not the way that they're proceeding has legal risks. But it just so happens that the folks that I'm working with have really interesting things that they're working on,
Yeah.
and there is a need in the market for that. And they're trying to fill it, and it logically makes sense. So my enthusiasm flows organically, and clients can
Okay.
sense yes
Okay.
from an attorney. We're not very good at hiding it, even though we think that we're really good at
Yeah.
hiding it.
Right.
But no, I try to be as transparent with the client as possible. I let them know the risks without at the same time being a Debbie Downer. But if I think that a client presents me with an absolutely reckless idea that is a bad investment for both them and myself
Yeah.
as an attorney, I let them know
Yeah.
this might not
Yeah.
end up the way that you think, and these are the pitfalls and the exposure that
Totally.
you're putting yourself up to. Yeah.
Totally. So you said that your brand is your launch pad, protect it before you scale. So like, tell me what that means in like practical terms for founders and business owners.
So it's funny because if I were to be really, really technical about it, I'd say start using it before you actually, for instance, if you have a trademark that you want to register for it, you want to start using it before you actually register it because you have common law rights. So, but it is important to early on in the phases of launching your business be very clear about the thing that you are producing, that you're generating, the people that you are collaborating with to launch that idea. Every conversation that you have with folks can be a potential infringement, right?
Yeah.
And by that I mean, sometimes right now I'm, for instance, working with a web app developer, and they came to me after they had already created the infrastructure for the app with a software developer, and they didn't have an NDA in place. And that stressed me out to no end because I thought, well, we don't know now if that developer is going, and they haven't gotten a patent yet. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
We don't know now if the software developer tomorrow wants to become a competitor and copy and paste your idea. So I always tell my clients, when you're working with these folks that you think are going to be innocuous now and going to be just collaborators, you need to get them to sign these NDAs before you start working with them. And more technically, lock in an IP assignment clause that says that you own rights to whatever it is that they're helping you create.
Right.
Come right back to you, and you're going to be the rightful owner. And a lot of these words and protections are lost on folks that don't have this background. And so I try to proactively tell clients that before they start launching their idea and their business. And so that's what that means.
Okay. I like it. So like, what's the most common mistake and I think you just explained one actually, but like the most common IP or brand mistakes you see early on, and I think you just talked about the NDA, but
there's that, and then there's also not being very clear about your financial constraints. There are some IPs that might be best putting off at the moment because they're so costly. So patents are probably the costliest form of IP. They take about 3 to 5 years to get registered. It's very expensive, understandably, because of the nature of this particular IP. And so when I have, for instance, a client that's working on a software, I usually counsel them because usually in the early stages of development, I say, well, right now it would be better to get a copyright on the source code instead of getting a full-on patent, because copyrights, it only takes 3 to 5 months to get it registered for the most part, and it's gonna give you immediate protection during the early stages of your launch. It's less expensive, whereas with patents, it takes longer, it's more expensive. And so have some protections in place, but if you have a budget, let's look at the less costly alternative right now. And also agreements. I mean, obviously, some attorneys will say agreements are free. They're not free if you're working with an attorney. So you have to factor in my costs,
Yeah, no,
cost,
seriously.
because we do not want to encourage clients copying and pasting templates from ChatGPT. That's the last thing that we want to encourage.
And you can probably tell when they come to you and they're like, hey, look at
Because
this.
they keep the same text and the same bolded text and the same colors.
The same like little dash right there. They don't
And
even
the
change
check
that.
marks.
I know to change that, when I'm in an email. But so Rosa, tell me, like, your definition of success, like, has it changed since launching your own firm, whether like financially, personally, professionally? Like, has it changed?
It has. It really, really has. I thought that I was gonna retire in a big law firm and just kind of like call it quits. I mean, there's no calling it quits when you're working for a very large law firm. And that has changed drastically for me after launching. The satisfaction that I get, even through the long, hard nights where I'm wearing the accountant hat, the business development hat, the client acquisition hat, the lawyer hat, it's 2 a.m. and I have to get this
But
motion
you
out.
love it. Doesn't it feel good though, sort of, to know it's all yours?
Because you're working for yourself.
Yeah, it's like all yours. It's kind of like, this is, I don't know. There's something about it. And look,
It's gratifying.
yeah, it's gratifying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gratifying because you're working for your own brand. You're putting in these after hour efforts for yourself, and you're betting on yourself. That betting part is I think a huge game turner. And it's why I can identify with clients so much, because I'm an entrepreneur and I'm working with folks who are in the same struggle, or rather challenge and experience as I am. So I understand them on a molecular level, even if we're in different practice areas and dedications.
So who do you have go ahead. Sorry, finish your sentence.
Yeah. And that's one of the, I think, most exciting things about working for yourself, and the most gratifying right now. Yeah.
Who do you have for staff? Like, are you hiring overseas? Are you getting like, different people from like,
So
there's different like things that you could use. I have a connection to hireparalegals.com if you need one. That's a shout out to them. But
okay,
and it's actually like pretty interesting. So
I have somebody who helps me calendar. They help me file right now, because it's one of the hardest things for me to do. Especially with the different local rules. It's a lot, especially when you're coming from a place where you have legal assistants, which is another, I just want to plug this in. Junior associates, take time to sit next to your assistant and learn how they file. I got to this point in my career, I don't know how, not knowing how to file a single pleading in court, because
so that's what you have. You have somebody that's helping you.
I have somebody overseas who helps me do the filing and then the calendaring. I think it's very essential though for associates to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
One, because sometimes you have to get things out on the weekend and you don't have your assistant. And two, if you want to launch your own firm, don't take 2 hours to figure out how to file a notice of appearance. It sucks.
Yeah. You just chaz the client. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. That's a joke. So, all right. We would never do that. So, what has surprised you the most about yourself since becoming a founder?
That I can do the damn thing.
That's good. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much a surprise as it is just like a dash of extra confidence. It feels good to be on the side. Again, the nights are long, the hours are a bit unpredictable.
Right.
Betting on yourself, and when you finally get to see your product without any strings attached, it's just you and your connections that you built with your clients. It's a different satisfaction. There's one thing winning a case, and there's another thing getting and keeping clients and keeping them happy and having them call you and tell you
Right, right. It's different
correct.
because
It's
it's kind of
different.
like an ongoing relationship, like what
Yes.
you're doing, and so that takes a
Yeah.
people person like you were talking about. So they say like you're an people are entrepreneurs. They have a little more flexibility. You can maybe sleep till 8 o'clock. You can like work late from like 4 to 10. Do you feel that flexibility yet, or do you always feel like you're working? It's in the back of your mind to get X, Y, and Z done.
No, I think I'm always round the clock. I mean, if I'm always thinking about my business.
Yeah.
There is a flexibility in the sense that you don't have a rigid 9 to 5, but you do need to do the client work. And so however that looks like, if that means waking up at 10 a.m. and going to sleep at 10 p.m., because that's when you're done with client work and assessments, that's what
Yeah.
it means. So in that sense, it's very freeing, but you still have the round the clock constraints of, well, I have to get invoices out and I don't have an accounting department, or I have to do my own marketing and I don't have like a marketing department, and I have to go find clients, and I'm the one in front of every initial client consultation. I don't
Right.
have a person who gets the first conversation with the client. And so in that sense, there is a 24-hour, my mind does not go to sleep.
Yeah.
But on the other end, I get to structure my schedule. So on a day that I have to go to a doctor's office or I have to run an errand, I can start my days maybe a little earlier, make space in the afternoon for that, and then maybe work a little later or start my mornings later. There's that flexibility, but the work doesn't stop. And but ultimately, it's funny because I just had somebody say this. Maybe burnout isn't the right word, but the burnout, I'll just use that word,
Hmm.
um, on this side of things is much more exciting. And like it just feels better
The
than it does.
burnout feels better.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, because you're seeing progress
Yeah.
for the thing that you're building and that you're laboring
Yeah.
for. Sometimes it
Okay.
doesn't feel like you're getting anywhere when you're working under somebody else. Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. I like that. That's interesting. We'll have to talk about that more. But so you were named, congratulations, 40 under 40 by Miami-Dade Bar Young Lawyer. Do you know I was actually on a panel with some of those people?
Really?
I have to find my thing where it's like I was on like a little panel like 3 or 4 years ago. Anyway,
Shout out to the Dade Bar County Association. They're the
what's
best.
that?
Shout out to the Dade County Bar
Shout out.
Association.
Tell me, like, what did that recognition mean to you?
Oh my God, it meant a lot. It's funny because I had a few colleagues that had some more years of practice experience under me get those recognitions. And I remember thinking like, wow, will I ever get to this point? This is amazing. So when I saw that in my inbox, I thought, this must be spam.
Yeah,
And then I asked my network, I'm like, is this real? And they're like, yeah, you were
that's
nominated.
awesome.
This is
That's great.
legitimate.
So you're
And
nominated. That's super
so
cool.
it feels extremely humbling. I feel like I have a fairy godparent or fairy god support that sees how hard I'm hustling in private as well as in public. So
Mm,
it feels really, really good. It's very encouraging, and it's nice to see also the rest of folks that also graduated my year from Law, getting their flowers, and I've seen them from afar working and hustling, and so and I have a lot of friends from my year that are on the list. So I'm
that's
like, you know
awesome.
what? I love this. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. So, like, well, I've been asking you questions all night, but like, when do you feel like most in your element? Like, as a person, a professional, like, as a
Probably at the point where, this is like probably 5 minutes into an initial consultation when I meet a prospective client and I ask them, all right, so tell me about your idea and tell me about the problems that you're having and the solutions that you're looking for.
okay,
So when I ask a client to explain that, you can just see the energy in the room change, their eyes light up. The conversation just pivots from oh, I'm in a legal dispute and I'm trying to protect my thing, to this is why I took the leap. This is why I made this financial investment. This is why I want to bring this idea to market. This is why I think this product is going to make a sick person's life better, especially when these are medical folks, healthcare folks who have a medical patent. And so that to me is the most exciting part when I hear the client's idea and the reason behind it and the passion. Um, Yeah, it makes going hard for them really easy or just manageable. So
Good. So just a couple more here. So for attorneys like that are kind of behind the scenes, like quietly thinking about like, hey, I want to launch my own firm, like, but they're kind of hesitating. Like, would you have any advice for them, or what advice would you have for them?
it depends on the stage of practice years that they're at. So I've had very successful friends who went solo right out of law school. I commend them. These are like badasses, like
Yeah.
Wild West attorneys that have that talent.
Uh-huh.
I think for the regular attorney, getting experience under a seasoned partner or attorney to guide you through the process is essential. If you really want to take the leap. So my answer really depends on how many years practicing that attorney has. If it's an early stage law student who hasn't started practicing, I would say there's a lot of value and benefit in working under an attorney at least the first few
Sure.
years, and then going off on your own. Unless you're really talented and you really feel deep down that you can do this successfully without working for a firm. If it's someone who's already been practicing for a few years, I say do it now before you're too tired to do it later and you're
Right.
too locked in to do it later.
Locked
And
in, yeah, for
yeah,
sure. Yeah.
and do it now, especially if you feel like the practice area that you also want to be doing isn't converging with the practice area that you're doing now, and that it's not feasible for you to incorporate
Right.
the practice area, as was the case with me. And even if you don't have a book of business, I didn't have a book of business when I opened.
Yeah.
Take that leap because the clients will come. It's going to take hustle. You're going to have to go out and find them, and also keep your network with other attorneys alive, because a lot of attorneys will refer clients to you early on and throughout the life of your firm, and also share that. Also refer cases to friends, and other attorneys that have extended that courtesy to you. But I'd say do it. Maybe if you're more junior, or you're still in law school, I'm a little bit more traditional and would caution to work under an attorney
Yeah.
first.
No, I think that's good advice for sure.
Yeah.
So what's next for Via Law as you continue to build Rosa's new chapter?
I to just build my book of business and to build my client base. Really, I want to tap into this growing market, and I mentioned this briefly, of tech companies that
Okay.
are coming in droves from California, from Silicon Valley, and really many areas in California and also New York, and are establishing their long-term roots here. There are a lot of biotech folks that are doing really interesting things in the city, and very quietly. And I've been in these spaces, and it's exciting stuff. It's exciting stuff, and I want to get ahead of it. And I think that there's a lot of growth here for IP attorneys, licensing attorneys generally, and just the growth of the city. It's exciting to see this change. And yeah, that's the future. Just
Yeah, I mean, look, it sounds like you're in the right place.
yeah,
So
thank you.
that's good. Congratulations. Is there anything else you want to share with the Lawyer Stories community?
That's that. I think that covers everything. I mean, if you have a question, I can wax poetically about any topic, but it's been a real pleasure to talk to you, Ben, as always. And I love what you're doing, and
Thank
I'm a
you.
huge supporter. You were one of the first folks online that reached out to me that
Thank
I
you.
connected with. So I'm super happy that we finally came full circle and had this
Yeah,
conversation.
for sure.
And I love your network, and you're doing great work. This is what it's all about.
I appreciate that. And please stay right there. Rosa Villa, Via Law, Miami, Florida. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.